In this comprehensive module, we explore feminist film theory, one of the most critical and transformative branches of film studies. This theoretical framework interrogates how cinema has historically constructed and represented gender, particularly women, through narrative, form, and ideology. Feminist film theory seeks to deconstruct the male gaze, challenge patriarchal cinematic conventions, and create space for diverse, empowering, and authentic representations of women and gender minorities. Emerging from the women's liberation movements of the 1960s and 1970s, feminist film theory took shape through key academic texts and critiques that analyzed the objectification, passivity, and marginalization of female characters in film. It draws upon psychoanalysis, semiotics, Marxism, poststructuralism, and cultural studies to unpack how meaning is made and how power is exercised through cinematic images. From classic Hollywood to contemporary global cinema, this module will trace theoretical foundations of feminist analysis in film, the male gaze and objectification, gendered spectatorship, representation versus agency, intersectionality in feminist critique, feminist filmmaking practices, and the rise of the female auteur. We will also study the contributions of key theorists such as Laura Mulvey, Bell Hooks, Teresa de Lauretis, Judith Butler, and Molly Haskell, and will analyze films across eras and cultures to apply feminist insights in meaningful and critical ways. Learning objectives. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the historical emergence of feminist film theory and its intellectual roots, define and critique concepts such as the male gaze, to be looked atness, and scopophilia, analyze films for gender representation, power dynamics, and narrative agency, explore how feminist filmmakers challenge and subvert traditional cinematic language, discuss intersectional approaches to race, class, sexuality, and gender identity in film. Apply feminist theory to both mainstream and alternative cinema. Section 1. Historical foundations of feminist film theory. Feminist film theory gained prominence in the 1970s, influenced by second-wave feminism and critical theory. Pioneering texts like Laura Mulvey's Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, 1975, argued that classical Hollywood cinema positioned women as passive objects of male desire, reinforcing patriarchal structures through both story and visual style. Key influences: psychoanalysis, Freud and Lacan's theories of desire, identification, and the unconscious Marxism, gender as an ideological construct tied to capitalism and labor semiotics, how signs and symbols, such as costumes, camera angles, or body language, encode gender meaning, structuralism, poststructuralism, deconstructing binary oppositions like male-female and active-passive. Section 2. The male gaze and visual pleasure. The concept of the male gaze is foundational. Laura Mulvey argued that mainstream cinema aligns the camera, the narrative, and the spectator with a heterosexual male perspective. Core ideas: scopophilia, pleasure in looking. In film, this often becomes voyeuristic. To be looked atness. The female body is coded for visual consumption. Narrative agency. Men drive the story forward. Women halt the narrative as spectacles of beauty or eroticism. Mulvey described how films like Vertigo, Gilda, and Rear Window position the audience to identify with the male protagonist's gaze, effectively rendering women voiceless and disempowered. Section 3. Gendered spectatorship. Later theorists such as Teresa de Lauretis, Marianne Doan, and Bell Hooks complicated Mulvey's model by emphasizing race, sexuality, and the diversity of spectatorship. Key considerations: not all spectators are male, nor do they all identify with the male gaze. Women and queer audiences can experience disidentification, resistance, or alternative readings of cinematic texts. Bell Hooks introduced the concept of the oppositional gaze, a critical gaze from Black women that challenges racist and sexist representations. Judith Butler added insights about gender as performance, suggesting that cinematic representation can reinforce or destabilize gender norms. Section 4. Representation, Stereotypes, and Absences. Feminist theory has long critiqued how women are represented or excluded in film. Common stereotypes include the damsel in distress, helpless, and in need of rescue; the femme fatale, dangerous, seductive, punished for sexuality; the mother nurturer, defined by domesticity and sacrifice; the manic pixie dream girl, exists to inspire male growth. Equally important is the analysis of who is left out. Women of color, trans women, disabled women, and women from working class or non-Western backgrounds are often rendered invisible or tokenized. Section 5. Intersectionality and Feminist Film Analysis. Intersectionality, coined by Kimberlé Crenshaw, calls attention to the overlapping systems of oppression that affect identity, gender, race, class, sexuality, disability, etc. Feminist film critics now recognize that a white feminist reading may not apply to a Black woman's experience of a film. Representation must go beyond presence to address narrative power, complexity, and nuance. Films like Moonlight, The Farewell, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and Atlantics offer multidimensional perspectives on gender and identity. Section 6. Auteurism in the Postmodern Age. Postmodern cinema often questions or deconstructs the idea of authorship. Directors like Quentin Tarantino and the Coen brothers create films that are intertextual, self-referential, and stylized, embracing the aesthetic of pastiche and cultural recycling. In a postmodern world, the auteur is less a solitary genius and more a curator of influence. The boundaries between high art and pop culture dissolve. Authorship becomes fragmented, shared with writers, showrunners, and audiences, e.g., fan fiction, extended universes. Still, the director's vision remains a powerful lens through which we interpret cinema. Key takeaways. Auteur theory recognizes the director as the primary creative force in filmmaking. It has legitimized film as an art form and enabled in-depth thematic and stylistic analysis. Auteurs are marked by recurring visual styles, narrative structures, and philosophical concerns. The theory has limitations, especially in overlooking collaboration and marginalized voices. In the digital era, authorship is more complex, distributed, and democratized than ever.